coming to you live from the caverns deep beneath Wayne Manor and totally not from my mom's basement. Welcome everyone to today's episode of the BatChat. Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to today's episode of the BatChat. You know who it is. It's your boy Derek here of DH Cosplay, and you guys can't see her, but my guest is currently laughing at me on the Skype screen because of my cringy intro. But hey guys, what is going on? Welcome to BatChat. For those of you who don't know, BatChat is a weekly podcast and live stream where we talk about all things Batman. Are we limited to Batman? No. In fact, we very rarely talk about Batman on here. Just Batman was a catchy topic. But we will try to keep it somewhat Bat-themed for this week because we have several really cool topics due to several announcements that have been made over the last couple of weeks. And I'm sure we will talk about just about everything under the sun here. So welcome to BatChat. For those of you that don't know, you can catch BatChat in long form podcast format on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify, and I'm sure other places as well. I don't know. I just upload it on my host and then they just take care of the rest. But all the necessary links will be in the description below. You can also follow me on Instagram at D_H_cosplay. I think that's it. Links in the description below for that as well as for my lovely guest, Miss Sydney, which you will be seeing later on. Something else that we are going to be doing every single week is highlighting a local cosplayer, or sorry, not a local cosplayer. This is a live show. You're going to hear me say stupid stuff. Smaller. This is a live show, everyone. You're going to hear me highlight a small cosplay page. And when I say small, usually going to be under 1,000 to 2,000 followers, just to highlight smaller cosplay pages on Instagram. If you have a cosplayer that you want to nominate, feel free to send them to me on Instagram. Please don't nominate yourself. Let other people nominate you if you really want to be on here. But I will put out a poll every week on my Instagram where you can vote for who you think should be nominated every week. And like I said, we will be highlighting them every single week here on BatChat. Trying to think if there's anything else we needed to discuss today. And I think that is it. So if you guys are ready, let's go ahead and get into today's episode of BatChat. And joining me for this episode is the awesome, the amazing, the absolutely adorable, well, if it will go. Okay, Miss Sydney. Hey, Sydney, how are you, boo?
Hi. I'm good.
You're good. Okay, we can see and hear you, which is great. So let me make sure that I've got the chat opened up over here so I can actually see when people are commenting. And yeah, by all means, if you guys are on here, feel free to reach out in the comments section. I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have. Unless it's Aaron asking either one or both of us to just do unthinkable things on here. Aaron's an interesting fellow, but without further ado, Sydney, how are you today?
I'm good. I'm in the middle of a bunch of projects, so a bit stressed, but like good stressed.
Good stress. That's good. It's good to be good stressed. What kind of projects are you working on? Are they secret projects for the government?
Oh, absolutely. I'm building bombs. No, not at all.
Please don't get me taken off the air.
That's my goal, actually. But no, just a bunch of stuff. As cons back here are starting, like mid-February is when our little con season starts. Mm-hmm. So, very exciting.
That is cool. So you've got a couple different cosplays that you're working on, and Sydney's Instagram will be linked in the description below. Definitely go give her a follow. She's always got fun stuff, and she just recently created this really cool hat, and I'm only slightly disappointed that you're not wearing it.
Wait, so right, I promise.
I was told that there would be a hat for this, but
it's not even a hat. It's a failed piece of a project, but it works as a hat. Look how huge it is. It fits over my afro. It's how I knew it's too big, but
it is just a little bit big. So what was that originally for? Oh, saw a little bit more of your room than we needed to, huh?
I know, you saw my terrible floor. I should vacuum. But that was originally for, if you ever, I know you might not have, but the anime Kill la Kill has a character in there that I love. I love her design, but I really also just wanted to build an Iron Man suit. So I'm mashing them up to kind of feed my two wants concurrently.
Hey, that there's nothing wrong with that. Yeah, and I've gotten to see some of your designs on that, and it just looks absolutely phenomenal. And I'm sure you'll be able to figure it out. But very, very complicated design and very, very complicated pattern to come up with. And that's actually one of the things that initially helped me discover Sydney was I was scrolling through just trying to find different cosplayers to highlight here on BatChat, and I've always been curious about EVA foam cosplayers because, or at least people who do a lot of work with EVA foam, because it's one of those things that it's very common, in cosplay. You see a lot of people that do a lot of stuff with EVA foam. So to find someone who can take literally just foam, just craft foam, yoga mat foam, and make this really cool work of art is honestly not something you see very often. And I mean no disrespect to other EVA foam cosplayers, because there are some great ones out there. But I don't even know what hashtag I was following, but I saw this awesome, not Hellbat, this bat suit that you were working on, and I'm blanking.
Yeah.
Which one?
Nightmare.
Yes, this awesome Batman armor that she was working on, and I was like, holy crap! And I just went through and just saw all this great stuff that she's been working on, and had her on BatChat when I was originally doing it on IGTV, and we just really hit it off, and been best buds ever since, and absolutely adore her, and she still just blows me away with, of course, you gotta do that. And still just blows me away with the stuff that she does on this EVA foam, and just that artistic vision that she has. So we're definitely going to talk a little bit about that today. And I'm very excited to see the Kill la Kill. Was that right? Kill la Kill Iron Man.
Yeah.
I am absolutely ignorant when it comes to anything anime. For anyone who knows, like, the closest thing I've ever come to watching anime was either Pokemon, and I wasn't allowed to watch Pokemon when I was a kid. I tried to get into it when I was older, or the original Teen Titans cartoon show, which is definitely not anime at all, but it's close enough for my intents and purposes, I guess.
It's don't let anyone hear you say that, but it's close enough.
Yeah, people are going to absolutely roast me about that. But hey, I've never claimed to be an anime expert, but it's definitely something that a lot of people are into, and hey, if you like it, you like it. There's nothing wrong with that. So is that your current project, that Iron Man mashup, or what?
Those two. So right now I'm kind of in the middle of balancing them both, because the con that's I think the most recent closest con is in about a month and 10 days. So I can finish either one, but I have to finish one of them. So I have to pick which one I want to finish. Is either the Nightmare or that Kill la Kill one. So I'm just working on both of them for now.
Well, I think obviously my preference would be the Batman one, because that's the one that I initially discovered you with. But I don't know how we haven't really talked much about that one as far as like what all is left on it. I know the torso is mostly done, right?
So the torso is done. And actually last night I was working on basically what would go here around my ribs, which are these little shapes, if you can kind of see them.
Mm-hmm.
These little textured things. They're all over the costume. They're quick to make, but they're quick. They're easy to make, but they take a little bit of time.
Yeah.
But so for that, actually, as soon as I glue those on, like there's like 5 of them for each side, the torso is completely finished. The belt's finished. And the legs, actually, the calves are half done. The thighs, I am probably naively saying, will be a bit easy. Once again, naive. You might get a text from me tonight that's just me screaming about how much I hate them, but for now, I'm confident.
I do randomly get those, like when you're working on the shoulder armor for your Iron Man build. You're so excited, it's like, I figured it out. And then randomly I get this picture of you wearing it on your head, like, they're too big!
It's very true. I look so upset in that picture because my roommate, I had my arms in it. I actually can't move my arms because they're in the shoulders. because they're so big. They just don't sit on my shoulders.
My heart was broken for you. You looked so disappointed. It was so sad. But I mean, it still looks cool, and I think it makes for a cool hat. I think there's something in there. You could do like a, you know, badass Wicked Witch of the. Let's see, where are you at? You're in Baltimore, so it'd be the
East?
East, I
I'm east of
guess.
you.
Yeah,
I'm east, yeah.
East side. No, sorry. We'll cut that out. Just kidding. It's live. I can't cut anything out.
I'm
Uh,
West Baltimore, so
hmm.
I still have to be careful. I'm over west as far as Maryland goes. I
Oh,
have to be very careful about what I say.
you do. Yeah, we have to be very careful. We can't disclose your location, especially after you told us about your secret project for the government.
I
Um,
know.
what are you doing as far as the cowl goes for that suit? Are you going to build one or?
I want to build a foam cowl. I have heard various things about how smart that may be. Just given the how foam really doesn't breathe at all. It's basically plastic, right? So keeping that on your face is probably going to be a little bit uncomfortable.
Right.
But I don't know if I've ever shown you the cowl for this suit. It's just totally enclosed. There's a lot of like wrinkles and texture around the eyes, so it looks so cool. So I
Yeah.
want to make it. We'll see if all my hair fits into it, but
Yeah, yeah. The I've seen the because it's an action figure, right? That's based on. I've seen because you've sent me several pictures of that because I thought initially it was like some Arkham Knight type thing, but then looking at the actual action figure, um, it's definitely very complicated. And replicating that is no easy task. I mean, it's they have the option of it, or they have the luxury of it being a sculpture. Like you don't have to be able to move or breathe in it. But when you actually have to walk around a con in it, it's very difficult. And even like, with me, wearing a bat suit. In fact, I've got a birthday party next weekend that I've got to do. Hopefully I'm feeling better by then. Walking around in a urethane cowl is a nightmare because urethane definitely doesn't breathe. And no one tells you this either. Fun fact for Batman cosplayers, this little bridge under the nose in the cowl becomes a swimming pool of sweat. And so, like, literally, if you don't have holes there or you don't cut that part out, you can be at a con and just, like, pull it over and just sweat just come pouring out. And it's disgusting. But, yeah, Batman cosplay is super fun.
don't scare me.
No,
Not
you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it. I will give you a fun fact, or at least a pro tip for your cowl. And I don't think I've ever given a woman this advice before. That's an interesting setup. But yeah, all Batman cosplayers, feel free to use this. Pads, maxi pads, really come in handy in cowls. So you can take like I'll sometimes put like 4 or 5 of them and just pad all throughout the head of the cowl, and it helps to kind of helps to soak up the sweat. So I would whenever you're building that, factor in that. Oh, I saw Aaron left a comment and then retracted it. I don't know if that's Zuckerberg trying to. Does Zuckerberg own YouTube? I mean, he owns the world at this point, but
everything, I assume.
yeah. Well, he retracted his message. But Aaron, I see you over there. Don't retract your message, you coward. It said something about maxi pads, so maybe YouTube was like, this is probably inappropriate." Okay, I bought stock in maxi pads for that reason.
I
Sure.
just read.
Well, there you go. But yeah, absolutely. I would definitely put that in the cowl, and that will help. But the infamous photos of me at Arkansas Comic Con this past year, or I guess last year, now it's 2022, with like my emblem glistening with sweat. That's just because I only had 2 maxi pads in instead of the usual 4 or 5, because it's very hot. So
I know for foam, you can't put it on your skin.
that's
You
true.
will sweat.
Yeah.
You'll sweat until you take your paint off. I've taken my paint off before
Goodness.
in skimpier cosplays. I've just completely like sweat through my first 3 layers down to my primer, and it's like, oh darn.
Yeah. That's impressive.
I know, actually, I'm very impressed with myself.
Yeah.
Out of
I'm
my
glad you
red.
did multiple layers. I'm so impatient when it comes to painting. I'll just do like one real thick layer and just be done with it. But yeah.
See, I wish I could do that, but my Michaels has so many paints that I want to buy them all, so then I feel like I have to use them. So next thing we know, I'm forced to paint in dimension on everything. But my Witchblade costume actually there's only really two colors to that, but there's about 6 shades of paint.
Wow.
There's 6 shades of paint and 4 layers.
You know
Just
what?
because
What
I
I
like it.
should have done was taken some photos from your Instagram, and which I mean, you guys can see in the thumbnail. I believe I have that thumbnail I made for you that's got you with the hat and everything. I think that's the thumbnail. Um, but just to kind of show off some of your cosplays. But guys, definitely go give her a follow. She's got some great stuff that she's been doing, and definitely go give her a follow. It's because of all that manliness of a chest you have. Yeah, because of my bat boobs. So
Well, I have those right here. Technically, I have bat boobs right there on the ground beside me.
on the ground beside you, interesting.
I do. I have bat boobs. Just like
Nice.
bat boobs.
So is
I
that
always have.
slot there? You still got to make the emblem.
So in my reference, actually, this glows red.
Ah,
So
yeah.
there's 6 mil of a decrease because I have to put LEDs, and then there's something called plastisode, which it's called LED foam. It lets LEDs shine through.
That
So
is
that's
cool.
just for a plastisode emblem and some red LEDs that hopefully I know how to use.
That is cool. That is really cool. I really want to see that now. Yeah, I'm thinking you're just going to have to do that for your con, and we'll just save Iron Man for another day.
I have 3 cons in July that are back to back,
Okay,
so
so we'll be
it'll get
seeing it.
worn. That's true to get worn.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, definitely make sure you go follow her so you can see it. Um, it also sweats bad in leather with my green arrow. I did. It was hot. AF. What's AF mean? I wonder. Um,
As
I know.
well, as and then a word.
Well, yeah.
You can get.
This isn't exactly a family friendly show, but I just like to sound like a boomer sometimes. But luckily, it's just a hood, and my green grease paint started to run down my face. Then the next comment is, "That's hot." I don't know if that's in reference to his own comment or something that we said, but yes, I would agree that's very hot. Yeah, Green Arrow. I got a couple of buddies that do Green Arrow cosplays, and they all get that same. Thank, thank you, Aaron, for clarifying what AF means. I know what it means. But now YouTube is like, I don't know if we can let this go. It's held for review. Anyway, so, but yeah, Green Arrow cosplays is tough because it's this all leather, and at least with Batman, there's some spandex. You get some breathability, but not much. So, going back to the topic of bat boobs, before we got on here, as you can see, I'm master of transitions. So before we got on here, you and I were just spitting hot takes on on different topics, such as the Batwoman CW show, and really just the CW DC verse, DC CWEU. I don't know, but
Yes,
yeah,
I
DC
think so.
CWU. I don't know what they would call it. I call it the SHIT. No, I'm not a big fan of the CW verse. In the earlier days, I did enjoy like Arrow and Flash, and that every show has had something that I'm like, okay, this is okay. But after a while, it just it got very CWE, and for some people, that's great. But for most people, evidently, when you look at the ratings of those shows, the more CWE it gets, the worse the ratings are. But it's obviously not CW's fault. It's obviously okay. Well, we'll move on. But we do want to talk a little bit about that because there has been an announcement for a new CW show, which is going to be Gotham Knights. Not to be confused with the video game Gotham Knights, which we might talk a little bit about that. Have you? You're not much of a gamer, are you?
I'm not, but I love art and I love video games, so I'm down.
You're down. Yeah, the Gotham Knights. I'll just kind of give. We'll just talk about that briefly. The video game. So the Gotham Knights video game looks really cool, but I'm very annoyed by it because okay, WB Games Montreal, who I think are the ones producing this game, are also the ones that did Arkham Origins, and they're pathological liars. See, they are because Warner Brothers in general is just a bunch of pathological liars because like constantly throughout the whole lead up to Arkham Origins, like it's gonna be a all new original story and it's gonna be Batman versus Black Mask and the assassins. Well, most of the assassins are side missions, and it really isn't even Black Mask. It's really the Joker that's the bad guy of Arkham Origins. Spoiler alert. And then for Arkham Knight, it's a totally original character. Arkham Knight, everyone's like, well, you're basically just doing Red Hood. No, no, totally original character that's exclusive to the Arkhamverse, and it was just great value under the Red Hood. So with Gotham Knights, they're like, yeah, Batman's dead. This is a totally new thing, and it's just going to be Gotham Knights. Like, no, no. It's very obvious. Now, I'll be happy to eat my words if this is not true, but it's very obvious. Batman's just going to be Talon. And once you beat Talon, because they're going against Court of Owls, once you beat Talon, then Batman will somehow be resurrected or restored, and Batman's going to be a part of this universe again. But Batman's definitely not dead. I can tell you that with absolute certainty. And okay, fine, I'll give you this. He might be dead right now. By the end of the game, he will not be dead. I'll put it that way. It's Court of Owls, so they're going to do some weird resurrection thing or like a Lazarus Pit thing, whatever. But no, Batman's not dead, or he's not going to stay dead in this game. So that's the thing that annoys me about it. I do like the concept of it, though. A Bat Family game sounds really cool. The costumes look really cool. It
I'm
seems.
looking at them. I'm looking at them a bit too excited.
Yeah, it seems like a really cool idea, and I am excited about it, despite my cynicism for how they're approaching potentially the biggest twist of the game. And look, I get it. I do. Like, it's kind of like with the whole Insomniac Spider-Man thing. Like, when everyone noticed that literally you can get any Spider-Man costume ever except for the black suit, but they weren't going to just say that, well, that's because we're saving the black suit for the sequel. Okay. Like, you're not spoiling anything or whatever by saying that. Like, it's an iconic Spider-Man story. Like, you could just say, well, we're saving it for a future project. Instead, they were like, well, what about all these other cool costumes? Like, just say it, Same thing with Gotham Knights. Like, I get it. I do. But I don't know. The whole, I don't like lying when it comes to marketing. And when they're outright saying Batman is dead, they're definitively saying Batman is dead. He's not in this game. When we know he's going to be in this game, it's just kind of frustrating.
Media hates to kill Batman, though. DC hates to put something out where Batman's actually dead.
They really do.
Flashpoint, maybe? I don't remember. Yeah, Flashpoint. But, like, even then, it's not Batman. It's just Bruce Wayne.
Right, yeah. Well, and it's...
kill Batman.
Yeah, there's... And we'll get into several different versions of Dead Batman where they're aping off of his popularity, but they don't want to admit that that's what they're doing. And it's very frustrating. But I just wanted to briefly talk about the Gotham Knights game. The show I know very little about. So from what I gather, let me pull up the article that I was reading about it.
Yeah, I have one too. The thing that scares me is that it says it's from the people who wrote Batwoman.
That's exactly what I just read. I was like, because you and I were talking about that before, and we will definitely get into Batwoman. But like,
I should say though, I don't hate the Batwoman show. I watched too much of it to say that I don't like it. I can't in good conscience say that, but I don't. I have a lot of problems with it.
I can say I hate it, but. So my whole thing, and we'll definitely get into Batwoman in a second. See, you have the same feelings about Batwoman as I do about Titans. Like, I don't like Titans at all, but I don't miss an episode. Just because it's like a dumpster fire. It's like a train wreck. You just can't help but not watch it, or can't help but whatever. And that's just me. If you love it and you think it's the greatest thing since whatever, fine. But I don't love it. But like with Batwoman, I want to like Batwoman, which is not something I ever thought I would ever hear myself say, because I don't like Batwoman as a character, because as you and I were talking about earlier, she has yet to be written well, because the whole, well, okay, let's just get into Batwoman, because we don't know much about the Gotham Knights show. But our thoughts and opinions and fears about the Gotham Knights show are directly tied to our opinions on Batwoman. So let's talk about the history of Batwoman for a second. Batwoman was originally, back in like the 50s, was designed specifically to throw people off the scent of Batman and Robin being gay. So they literally, yeah. Did you know that?
What a great reason.
Yeah. Literally, it was just because, of course, the comics back then were just weird. Like, you have this big Wayne Manor, right, with all these rooms, and Batman and Robin shared a bed, which was kind of weird. But, I mean, whatever. So, like, you could have just, like, had them sleep in separate rooms and probably would have made it a little bit less strange. But no, there would literally be stories of Batman and Robin waking up and they're, like, having pillow talk about what they're going to do about Mr. Freeze or whatever.
It's a bond. It's bonding.
It's bonding. But, like, I think that there's easier ways to throw people off the scent of your characters being gay than to create a whole nother character, like another bedroom. But anyway, so they created Batwoman and Batgirl to be love interest for Batman and Robin, respectively. And then when that didn't work out, Batwoman kind of fell from the limelight until recently. Well, I say recently, within the past past 20 years, I guess, because it was like late 2000s, maybe 2010s or 2010s. I don't know how we're going to refer to that era now. The 10s.
Meaning the 10s.
I guess
I don't like that.
I don't like that either. The teens? I don't know. How are we going to look at that? The early 21st century. I don't know. But recently, within the past 20 years, they revived the character of Batwoman and totally revamped her. So now she is notably one of the, I don't know if she would necessarily be one of the first, but one of the most prominent LGBT members in mainstream comics, because she is a lesbian. And if you didn't know that Batwoman was a lesbian, watch the show for at least 30 seconds. They will remind you. Or the fact that she's a woman. They'll remind you of one of those facts every few seconds. And I think the problem with there's not a problem with that necessarily. The problem is, like, that's a good opportunity for representation, which even with me being the wokelessness creature that I am, or whatever, that, like, I'm not a very woke person, as that may be very evident from, the more you listen to me. But as important as representation is, as much of a good opportunity as this is, it's typically not written by a person from that community. So they don't know how to write for something like that, if that makes sense. Which I think was kind of what you were saying. Your problem with it is like, when you get like straight white people who don't know how to write for someone who's not straight and white, then did I say that? A straight white person to write for someone who's not straight and white. I couldn't say that right, but I did. I got it right. When you get someone like that who doesn't know how to write for a character like that, it comes across very cringy and almost like they're overcompensating for the fact that this is the only representation you have of this people group. Right? I
think also, and away from that, Batwoman's writing failed for me as just like, you could definitely see the story beats from a mile away, right? Yeah. The very first episode, you know who everyone is. I've heard that it's gotten better, not being as formulaic, but it was just like you could tell what was going to happen for the rest of the season after you watched the first episode, and I really hate that. But that's so CW.
It
I
really
think
is.
they just even they're either so predictable it's painful, or their stories make absolutely zero sense, and not in a good way, not in a oh that's a fun twist way. It's like that's whiplash. And
Right.
I don't know. The first like 1.5 season or however long Ruby Rose was there, I forget. I don't know what season she left on. I think after the first.
Yeah, I think it was
But
after the
that
first.
season was extremely formulaic for me. It was just like watching something where you know what's gonna happen. And I don't know, those I think the character just deserved better
Right.
than a show where even I, who doesn't have a lot of experience with the comics, knew what was going to happen.
Right.
Like every single beat.
Well, and it kind of they didn't know, and this is very common with like this is my critique of Titans. This is my critique of a lot of the CW shows. And look, I get it when you're doing a TV show like that spans over the course of a season. Like most of the time, they're not going to have they'll have a general outline of what the like this is ultimately what we want the story to do. But if there's a story beat that doesn't work or doesn't get good ratings or doesn't get good reviews, they will absolutely backtrack and try to fix that. Because the same thing with comics. Like when they start a comic arc, the reason there's delays is not usually because the artist is taking too long to ink in all the final details. It's like, hey guys, people don't like this. We got to change this. Um, so with a show, I cannot imagine the pressure these guys must be under. So as much crap as I'm about to drop on them, I do at least want to offer an element of sympathy because like I couldn't imagine what that must be like. But you kind of have to grow a pair if you're going to make a show because you have to know what it is that you want, what you're wanting to say. And my issue with Titans and my issue with Batwoman and with a lot of these superhero shows is they don't really know what they want, like as far as tone goes. So like with Batwoman, for instance, Batwoman, and look, you guys can hate me in the comments all you want. Batwoman doesn't have any good stories in the comics, at least none that I can think of. Like, does she have some interesting stories? Yes, but like you can look at any other character and say, "Oh man, I remember this iconic moment. I remember this," and yeah, there's no secret. I'm not a big Batwoman fan, and maybe if I read some of her comics, I would probably try to find something. But even with the research that I have done on the character, because I kind of came to a point in my life where I realized, okay, the CW is never going to do a Batman show. So Batwoman's going to be the closest we're going to get. So I'm going to at least try to enjoy it. So I did buy some Batwoman comics and I did try to get into it, and I can't stand them most of the time. So Batwoman doesn't really have any iconic stories. So they had a couple options they can go with, and it started off of, okay, this is going to be kind of like a Batman Beyond type thing where Bruce is missing or dead. But then we don't really want to do that because, dead. We don't really want to do that because that makes the Batman fans mad. And then maybe he's not dead, maybe he's missing, but we don't care about Batman fans because they're men and we don't like men on this show, even though that's the largest demographic of people who are going to be watching this show. So then when they realize, okay, well, maybe that is not good because we saw a dip in our ratings. Well, now we're just going to we're going to pay homage to Batman and make it to where she's wanting to live up to that legacy. And so we're basically going to have Batman with boobs, and we're going to be doing these iconic Batman stories, but kind of in a Batwoman style, like with the Hush storyline that they were trying to do for a while. And a few other characters that they brought in that typically don't have a lot of interaction with Batwoman, but she's an iconic, they're iconic Batman villains, so it might kind of live up to that hype. Well, then Ruby Rose had her issues where, she had that injury where she was not going to be able to continue to be Batwoman. There was also some behind the scenes drama as well. She left the show, and so they recast Batwoman and went a totally different direction now. So you can just tell they're going from one ditch to the other because they don't really know what they want from the show.
I think, it definitely feels poorly planned. And for me, I've gotten to the point I don't want any more Batman media. When I say media, I mean TV shows.
Well, thank you for joining this episode of BatChat. No, I'm just kidding. Go
ahead. Time to go. No, I just don't think it can. I think the shows have just all danced around the idea of Batman. Gotham, Batwoman, everything DC is like, oh, he might exist, he might not,
Yeah.
he's dead. But and but they're always still like living within that shadow of it. Nothing ever just sheds Batman and just does whatever it wants to do.
Right.
And that's why they all kind of suck.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um anyway, so I will be watching the new Batman movie. But no, I don't know. I don't want anything else because I just don't think I don't know what exactly these shows are trying to emulate, like what parts of Batman they're trying to pick out. Like, do they want to be gritty and dark? Do they want to be about justice and good stuff? And I'm a good person. Like, what do you want to do with that? What
Right.
parts of Batman are you trying to take? Because it's none of the good ones.
Right.
But so here we are, where we're just kind of lost and flailing. I don't know. I might try the second season of Batwoman because I watched so much of it that I've invested a
Yeah.
little bit too much of my life in it to not like it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think the writers are not quite sure what of Batman they want to take because of course this is a Batman spin-off story as everything is
Right.
nowadays.
Right.
So who knows? Maybe I'll not hate the second season, or maybe I will, and I'll come in and like scream at you about it. But
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's definitely you have to kind of figure out what it is that you want and just kind of go from there. And I get it. At the end of the day, it's a business. And if no one is watching your show, then the show gets canceled. Now, I do have a theory, and based on the ratings, I think, and I'm not the only one that feels this way. I feel like it's right. But the only reason that Batwoman, when everything was going against it, literally the title character wasn't going to be on the show anymore. So they had to come up with a completely original character just to keep the show, help it limp along a little further. The only reason it was renewed for a second season was so they didn't have to admit that it failed. Because everyone that has had critiques about it, that has said like this sucks, whatever, they didn't want to admit defeat, and so they limped along for another season, and now it's supposedly being renewed for a third season. But the ratings week to week to week are getting worse and worse and worse. And how much longer are they going to limp along before they just admit that, okay, this didn't work?
I don't know. I remember being so excited for that show though.
Yeah.
I was so excited because I was excited for something different. I don't know. I did not give me what I wanted
Right.
at all. But I don't know. I'll look to something else. I think once again, as far as examples of superhero TV shows that we all need to like sit down and take notes about, I'll say Daredevil every day. I love Daredevil. I love
Yes.
Daredevil so much.
Yes.
I don't know. The writing was really tight. And I kind of harp on that in a lot of superhero shows because it can be superhero shows and movies can be really weak in writing.
Yeah.
But Daredevil, wherever the writers are, I hope you're having a great day.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Oh,
Yeah.
100%. Like, and I'm rewatching Daredevil right now, actually. And you and I were talking about this earlier. And I know you said that you don't really want any more Batman media, dude. I would kill to have. Well, I'm kidding, YouTube. I would not kill. But I
Right.
would. I would do unspeakable things to get a Daredevil style Batman show, a low budget noir kind of thing, where I would love that on HBO Max,
You're gonna have to
Netflix,
pay
whatever.
someone a lot of money.
Huh?
You're gonna have to pay someone a lot of money.
Oh, I know. But like, could you imagine a Daredevil style Batman show, like set like Batman Year One, like because I really enjoyed Superman and Lois. It does. It's kind of slow. I'll be honest, and I enjoyed it because okay, obviously that requires a crap ton of budget because I don't know if you know this, Superman flies and has godlike powers. So it takes a lot of special effects. So they had to really sell you on the Clark Kent aspect of Superman, which I think they did really well. And so we'll never get something like that out of the CW, but I would love to see like an HBO Max Daredevil-esque Batman show. But I think the reason that Daredevil is so successful is because the writers for Daredevil were not embarrassed to be making a Daredevil show. they were not ashamed of the fact that they were writing about a comic book character. And my critique has always been when it comes to not just Batman, but any kind of superhero TV show or video game or movie, is it feels like they're embarrassed to be making a superhero show. Like, and with Daredevil, they had it a little bit because like they hardly ever want him in the Daredevil suit, which is fine, whatever. Like in Punisher, it felt like they were apologizing the entire time he had the skull on his vest. Because they're like, this is silly. Like, no, we're watching Punisher because we want to see that. We're watching Daredevil because we want to see that. But if they can get over stuff like that, and even with them, I think they did it in a somewhat respectful way. But like, I would love to just see a comic book media, it doesn't matter what it is, that is unashamedly a comic book media. Like,
I think, yeah, that's true. Marvel's DC Plus shows, I mean, this DC Plus, Disney Plus shows have been they're gonna get me for that. They have been kind of like very comic booky, or at least Hawkeye, because it was based on a very specific like Matt Faction run, I guess,
right.
Felt very comic booky, and I liked that. The whole thing is about a suit, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, DC's yet to really lean into that as much. They should. I mean, you're literally making media about people who wear costumes every day. Just do it. Who cares?
Just do it. Yeah. Because I mean, the reality is, like, have you watched a lot of Titans? Do you watch Titans?
I love myself. What do you think? I'm trying. I want to one day, but I don't know. It just doesn't look.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we won't get too much into Titans then. I was just going to use that as an example, but like with those shows, like with Hawkeye, which I have not watched all of that yet, is I think when you embrace that, yes, this is a comic book movie, but you can do that in a serious way without it being a cringy, Dark Knight ripoff. Which a lot of movies did for a while because it worked so well with Dark Knight. Like, well, it worked well with Dark Knight because it was Batman. But you can't get away with that with everyone. But I think when you embrace the fact that, it's a comic book movie, but let's bring that to life, and you're coming at it with that kind of love and that kind of passion, that's when it works. But when you have a show where, like with Arrow, for instance, Arrow was basically Green Batman. I mean, a lot of his villains were Batman villains, recycled Batman villains. A lot of the storylines were recycled Batman stories. But when they finally were like, okay, no, we're going to tackle Green Arrow. And we're going to, what makes Green Arrow special? What helps to separate him from Batman? That's when the show really started to peak. And then CW's like, but what if we did this? And then the show kind of dipped off. But
I mean, I'm kind of excited. In that vein, the Peacemaker show at HBO Max. I'm very excited for that. I thought that was a very interesting character from that movie, which yes. I really adored that movie. I don't even like gore. I hate blood. I had to close my eyes several times. I still love that movie.
Yeah, that movie.
Oh.
Excuse me. That movie shocked me. I did not know what to expect. I'm a big John Cena fan. I love John Cena, and he is so unapologetically John Cena in that show. It's ridiculous. And in that movie, but I think it was like that very first scene where they're on the beach, and I was like, Jesus, what is going on here?
Oh god, I had to like close my eyes. I thought it was PG-13 until I saw someone's head get busted open. I was like, oh, okay.
Same
Forgot
here.
where I was.
Same here. I thought it was PG-13. Then it started taking off. I was like, oh my gosh, it was horrible. But great movie. Or I'm not gonna say great movie. It was a good movie. And I enjoyed.
Succeeds, but the other one doesn't. In a few
exactly
very specific ways.
Well, and you want to know why? Because they didn't care that they were making a Suicide Squad movie. And also just the writing and the directing was so much better. They tried to shoehorn in romance and shoehorn in this fake family arc. Found family only works when you actually write it correctly. Right.
I don't know if anyone knows this. Stories work when you write them.
What?
The movie just felt so like a guy sat down. It was like, I have an idea. And then they filmed the entire movie off of an idea that one guy had once.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can scream about Suicide Squad, the 2016 one, for hours.
Oh,
I every time I rewatch that movie, I find something else I don't like about it.
oh, me too. And I'll tell you something that drives me nuts too. Just a fun fact about the Suicide Squad show, or not the show, but the movie. The Batman scene. Literally, it's so cut together. He is wearing a completely different cowl in different frames. I'll
That's
I'll,
great.
I'll point it out to you. But like you can tell, like one of them was filmed immediately after Batman vs Superman because he's just wearing that suit, and then a couple of them, I'll send it to you where they do the analyzation of it. But yeah, he's wearing two completely different actually, I think no, I think it might be two, but two completely different cowls, like different suits. Because in some frames he's wearing his Justice League suit, and the other he's wearing his DOJ suit. And it's very noticeable, and I'm like, how did you not get that? But anyway, I remember watching that movie in theaters, and if you watch it as a comedy, it's not that bad because it's Will Smith. I mean, he's funny, he's charming. So there were several funny spots in it, but like several of the scenes that I think were supposed to be taken seriously were unintentionally funny. Like I remember cracking up at that scene where Diablo's like, "I'm not gonna lose my family again" or whatever. I'm like, what? You're not.
What family?
I thought it was a Fast and Furious meme where they're like,
When they just shoehorned in so much weird relationship between character bull. I don't
yeah,
know. I get really mad at movies with bad writing. And there
yeah,
are several superhero movies with terrible go on for hours, but that one probably sits at the top of my list for most annoying. Not the worst, but just the most annoying in the way that it just feels so slapdash together.
right,
Like they wanted to make two movies and only had the budget for one, so they just made some zombies and like some fun dancing bad guys.
yeah. Oh, I love
Um,
the belly dancing bad guy. That was the best part, and you could definitely tell like that was a last minute idea. Like it was supposed to be Suicide Squad versus Joker, and then poor Jared Leto just had 90% of his scenes cut out, and it was just yeah. They obviously wanted this to be a 2-part movie, but they just shoehorned it into one oddly short movie. Which, by the way, DC, we're fine with watching a movie that's over 2 hours. Just so you know,
I know.
because
Most of
like
us saw Endgame. So
right. Well, and like Zack Snyder's Justice League was 4 hours. You know, the Ultimate Edition of Batman vs Superman's 3 hours, something like that. Like we're fine with a long movie if it's good, but when you cut out stuff that is crucial to the plot, it feels weird. Like I wouldn't like. I don't think we're gonna get the Ayer cut. Like you guys can stop with the hashtags. I don't think we're gonna get that.
yeah.
But like I wouldn't mind watching a 4-hour version of Suicide Squad if you put in the stuff that was supposed to make the story make sense and take out the stuff that just didn't. But I'm not. I've only seen. I could probably count on one hand how many times I've watched it. And I can't hardly watch it in one sitting. Like after a while, I'm like you. I just get mad. I'm like, I just can't watch this anymore. Um,
No.
so yeah,
See, the
right.
reason
Good.
sorry. The reason I wouldn't want a full Suicide Squad cut though is also because the characters are really hollow.
Yeah.
You know, you don't want to follow them around. I wanted to follow everyone in the 2021 Suicide Squad for another movie. 2 movies, 3 movies. You could have sold me a 4-hour version of that movie. I would have taken it no problem. But even like Will Smith's character is kind of like a cardboard cutout with like fun sayings stuck on the back of him, you know?
Yeah.
And Harley's the same way. They're just very empty characters too. And DC has the luxury of having some really cool characters to put in their movies that either they don't use or they give them to people who have maybe never read a comic or can't read at all. So, so then they just,
A hot take from Sydney.
people can't read. And I'm very upset about it personally as someone who kind of can. Just a little bit. I can read short words.
Yeah. Oh goodness. That was good. But yeah, I totally agree. And Suicide Squad definitely highlights the 2016 Suicide Squad highlights everything I don't like about mainstream comic book movies. Because people can't tell me why you like Will Smith's character other than the fact that Will Smith is playing him.
Yes.
People like, okay, like perfect example, Harley Quinn. Jesus. From 2015 on, and look, okay, listen, okay. I'm not hating on Harley cosplayers. Please, just shut up. I'm not hating on Harley cosplayers. But you can clearly tell, like, with Suicide Squad, they mainstreamed the heck out of some Harley Quinn to the point where people don't know anything about this girl other than the fact that, man, Margot Robbie's booty looking good in them shorts. And so you get all these girls walking around in these sequin booty shorts saying, I'll be, he's my Joker and I'm his Harley. And I'm like, honey, look, if you're doing that in response to a movie, if you watch that movie and you come away from it thinking, I want to find the Joker to my Harley, you did not do a good job telling a story about those characters.
I feel like for me, the Joker and Harley stuff before that movie was worse. I could not go onto the internet for like more than 10 minutes about people wanting to somehow emulate that trash fire relationship.
Right.
I think that Suicide Squad made me realize, I guess, what I wanted out of Harley movies. I think the most recent Suicide Squad is a really good Harley.
Yeah.
And I really enjoy Birds of Prey. It has some very big, like, pacing issues. You have to pay attention.
You really do. Yeah, I've tried watching that movie several times, and you pretty much just have to put your phone down and, like, dial in, because you're not going to get it if you don't.
Yeah, but I think that Harley is my least favorite Harley. But I'm glad that, I guess, they listened to everyone hating that version, and in future movies she got better. But her whole thing was, I'm going to be naked in front of a bunch of people. Isn't that a funny joke? No, actually, It's not.
No,
it's like you're like the fourth woman in a movie that we've seen do that today. I wish that would be like a joke that we could stop.
Right,
would be very nice for me. But no, that whole movie is just a headache. It's a headache.
And look, like if you like that, that's fine. You're wrong, but that's fine. But the reality is, you don't like it, and when I say you don't, I mean the majority of audiences, which is why that movie failed. Same thing with Birds of Prey. Like, anytime I bring up my opinions on the show, like, well, and John, if you're watching this, I love you, buddy. Just so you know, like what John said last week, like that may not be your preference, but that might be other people's preference. No. Here's how this business works. If people want to go see a Harley Quinn movie, for instance, if you're watching a movie about Harley Quinn, it is safe to assume and reasonable to assume that your prior knowledge of Harley Quinn, being from the animated series where she originated from, or at least a run of the comics, which is admittedly very different, because the animated series Harley Quinn was a Joker henchwoman. She has progressed as a character and is now a pillar of DC Comics. But like your knowledge of her character, or at least what version that they're going off of, is what is the lens that you're going to view this movie from. And can you take a character that has a history, that has a legacy, and do a different take on him and be successful? Yes. Like Joker, for instance, the Joker movie. You may not like it. It may not be your preference. And I know you're not the biggest fan of that movie, but you can't argue that it wasn't successful. And the reason it was successful, to tie it all back, Joaquin Phoenix and Todd Phillips said, this is our version of Joker. Take it or leave it. Thankfully, it hit on enough of a nerve that people enjoyed it, but it's not Joker. It's just not. It's like, and people say, well, you can't say it's not Joker. It's just not your favorite interpretation. No, like, that's the luxury of having fictional characters that have a legacy. Like, for instance, hot take, the Dark Knight trilogy are not great Batman movies. They're excellent movies, and I love those movies to death. But they're not trying to be Batman movies. That version of Batman is not the version of Batman we see in the comics. It's a very specific take. And yes, they're paying homage to different things, but they're not trying to be Batman comic movies. They happened to hit a nerve in which it worked, and it was successful, and that's fine. But they're not Batman movies. Same thing with, there's all these examples, and I think where people get messed up is sometimes your interpretation just doesn't work. And like in my opinion, as much as I tolerate Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, I'm not her biggest fan, but I mean she's fine in the new Suicide Squad movie in the 2021. I didn't care for her in the first Suicide Squad movie. Didn't care for her in Birds of Prey. She was cute and funny, I guess. She did what they were wanting to do. They, put butts in seats, but I just didn't really care for her interpretation as Harley Quinn. But that's it. It's an interpretation of Harley Quinn. And it literally took 3 tries for it to be successful based on the success of Suicide Squad. So when it comes to all these different interpretations and things like that, this is a business at the end of the day. And the safest bet, if you're making a comic book movie, just make a comic book movie. Just unapologetically, like, look, we're going to do this thing from the comics because people like the comics. We're just going to literally panel for panel just do that. And sometimes it works. Like with Watchmen is a panel for panel with a few minor tweaks, but a panel for panel recreation of Watchmen. It was mildly successful. Then the Watchmen HBO Max show was like, okay, we're going to do something a little different. Was not successful. So, okay. So
I need to watch that still.
You need to watch that. I've tried watching it. I'm not a big fan of it because, again, if you're watching something like Watchmen, you have expectations. And I think that's the scary thing when it comes to making these comic movies. So let's try to focus the conversation a little bit. And I do want to get, because I feel like I've been dominating the conversation, which I tend to do, and I'm sorry. So there's a lot coming out this year. We've got Matt Reeves, the Batman, coming out. Huh?
I said almost too much.
Yeah, I would have to agree. Almost too much. There's a lot coming out this year. We got the Batman coming out in March. That's all I care about. No, we got the Flash coming out. I'm nervous about that one. I think there's a few more big ones that are coming out. Well, we got Black Adam coming out this year. Then you have Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Is that coming out this year or is that next year?
I think it's late this year.
Late this year.
It feels weird saying this year, but
it really is. Yeah. So what are let's see which of those movies are coming out this year? Which one are you most excited about? And we'll that will be our finishing topic.
Matt Reeves' Batman I'm most excited about just because, as much as I just said I don't want any more Batman media, it looks like and it feels like Batman. That is tentative. It may be based on editing alone, but
yeah,
it gives the right feeling, I guess, based on the few lines that they've put in and the color grading and the shots and like all of the little touches that make a movie atmospheric.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it is good.
Yeah.
But it does scare me. It's just like I get worried when a studio just suddenly revamps a character, even if it's supposed to be like a multi-universe kind of thing. I'm very worried that they're going to kind of like just throw stuff at the wall until something sticks. And that's what it has felt like DC's been doing for the past, like, ever since 2016, really, to me.
Right. Well, DC... Oh, good.
Hmm?
What'd you say?
Oh, just since Squad, it's just been, like, throwing spaghetti at the wall to see if it sticks.
But. Right. Well, DC's been playing catch-up with Marvel since the early 2010s. That feels weird to say. But, yeah... But they've been playing catch up because Marvel, had this idea for a cinematic universe, which is not something we've ever seen before. And they had a singular vision, or at least for phase 1 and phase 2, had a singular vision. And then, okay, we're going to have this main storyline that goes this way. And then we are going to have spin-off movies. And you can kind of do whatever you want. Just make sure it somehow connects back into this. But there was one vision for it. And like, this is what we're going to do leading up to Avengers and the Avengers storyline. And it was very successful. The most successful film franchise in history. It beat out Star Wars, which is something that, like, it's funny to think of that, too. Like, for me, I was a big Star Wars fan growing up. I don't know really how you feel about Star Wars, but I was a big Star Wars fan growing up. And I didn't think anything was ever going to beat Star Wars in terms of a film franchise. But I would,
Well, then it's owned by Disney, so
well, yeah, but I would absolutely say the MCU has like as far as um, the cultural significance, like more people know about MCU characters than they know about Star Wars characters. Star Wars is now more of a niche.
yeah, it is getting back to the. Well, I'm a fan of Star Trek, so
Ah, yeah, you're a Trekkie. I
you
forgot.
talk about niche. I mean, ugh.
Yeah. So yeah, the MCU was definitely very successful in that regard, and DC wanted that money, and so they. But in my opinion, DC like when Zack Snyder did Man of Steel, which I think came out 2013, 2012, 13,
Yeah.
something like
Yes,
that.
I
Um, like Zack Snyder, who I do love, Zack Snyder had a very specific vision for Superman, and I enjoyed Man of Steel. I know I'm somewhat in the minority there. I enjoyed Man of Steel. I love Henry Cavill, Superman. Um, like had a very specific vision, and then for the sequel, like he had this plan, and then Disney DC was like, hey, we want that Marvel money. Can you bring Batman into this? Oh wait, put Wonder Woman in there. And hey, Death of Superman, that's popular. Put that in there. And then oh well, crap, we killed him. Oh, we need Justice League. Hurry up! And then it just they constantly feel like they're having to, you know, speed up the process to basically crap out a cinematic universe in two movies. The reason it was iconic in 2012 when Avengers came up was we already cared about Hulk, which was Hulk and Iron Man, which were the first two MCU movies. We cared about Captain America, and then like we had the main characters that we cared about, and then when they came together, like that was a cool moment, and it felt earned when they finally assembled as the Avengers. But what's funny about it is we didn't really get the Avengers assemble moment until literally Endgame. Like they built up because they didn't say it. They almost said it a few times, but like when that moment happened, it was earned. And MCU was very patient about like we're gonna build up to this. And I feel like if DC would have just been like, okay, Zach, you've got this cool vision for Superman, do that. Matt Reeves, you got this cool vision for Batman, do that. Oh crap, I can't remember the director for Wonder Woman. I'm sorry.
Patty,
Who?
Patty Jenkins.
Patty Jenkins, that's right. Patty Jenkins, you got this excellent vision for Wonder Woman, do that. And then when we see the Trinity come together in Batman versus Superman, which was a stupid idea for the second movie, as much as I love that movie, that's not a good idea for the first whatever. Like, but when you see Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman fight together, like that should have felt like a really cool moment. The only reason I cared about that moment when I watched it in theaters is because I cared about those characters beforehand. But that's not how you make movies. Movies are mainstream media, and that's kind of going back to what I was saying earlier about interpretations. The room for interpretations is what the comics are for, because depending on who's writing it, who's drawing it, you could have a very different interpretation of a certain character. But like with these movies, you're not going after the comic book fans. You're going after the people who don't read comics. You're going after the people who are going to put butts in seats, because comics are still kind of a niche medium. So like the version of Batman that you put out needs to be a pretty mainstream version of Batman, which like what you said with Matt Reeves, with his version of Batman, you hit the nail on the head. It feels like Batman. Now, again, that could be editing. I don't feel like it is, but I feel like it definitely could be. But it feels like Batman. And so as a Batman fan, I'm very excited about it. But like I showed my dad the Batman trailer, all of them. He doesn't care anything about Batman or anything about comics at all. But even like that first trailer when my favorite moment of it, when the thug says, who the hell are you? And he just beats the piss out of him and says, I'm vengeance. My dad was like, that's cool. I want to see that. But it feels like Batman. I'm like, hey, my dad is excited about something that feels like Batman. That's a good sign. But like my dad and I did watch Batman vs. Superman. He was like, I didn't care for it. I was like, well, we need to watch the director's cut, which is 3 hours. He's like, no.
Exactly. Like I think DC relies on how much people already love their characters as fuel for earning, millions and millions of dollars at theaters, but like you're killing your own characters, right? Some of their movies just like completely decimate everything you thought that character was supposed to be. Right. But I don't know. I think DC just wanted the money a little bit too much and they weren't patient enough. So, I mean, Kevin Feige had like a whole plan. I don't know how much it was him and it's, of course it's other people contributing in the MCU. It's a whole army of writers and directors and people who put their all into planning out how everything is supposed to look. But like there was a group of people who had the same idea who wanted to make it happen. And I feel like DC just doesn't have that. They have a boardroom that's telling a couple of writers and directors, hey, so we'd really like if, these 8 top earning characters were on screen together.
Right.
And it feels so money grabby that it makes you not want to really watch them.
Right.
But who knows? I don't know, the MCU really, I don't know if they lucked out or what, but I'm looking forward actually to seeing what Sony does with the few MCU Marvel characters they have left. This Morbius movie.
Oof. Yeah.
It looks. He's a bat.
Yeah. It looks interesting. Yeah, I'm very curious to see how that dynamic's going to work, especially in the wake. And I'm going to have you back because I don't want to keep you too long. But definitely in the wake of No Way Home.
I know, but he re-signed those contracts.
I know.
So we 3 more Holland movies.
Yeah, well, there's going to be 3 more of MCU Spider-Man. I don't know if it's necessary. Did he sign 3 contracts? I thought he was signing 1 contract at a time.
I thought that the way MCU worked in the past and still works is that you sign multi-movie deals. But Marvel has to go through Sony to get the okay to then give Tom Holland a multi-movie deal. And I thought he signed up for the next 3. Hope. I like
Oh, I do too. So per my understanding, there is going to be a new MCU Spider-Man trilogy. There's going to be 3 more Spider-Man movies in the MCU. Period. That's in the bag. That's happening. But I think Tom Holland is signing 1 movie at a time because I think they're going to do a Miles Morales thing, which you and I kind of have similar feelings on. We already have Miles Morales in this MCU, but.
So why introduce him now? You just got to what Peter Parker is supposed to be for this Spider-Man in this universe at the last 10 freaking minutes of No Way Home in that crappy apartment with an empty fridge.
Yes.
And using his own suit and swinging over. Like, that is Peter Parker, and you just got to him.
Yeah.
I would like to have Peter Parker a little bit longer before you give me a new Spider-Man.
Honestly, give me at least a trilogy of that. Like, we finally, look, I don't have anything against MCU Iron Man Jr. Spider-Man. Like, it's not my favorite interpretation. It's not what I would have done, but hey, it got me Spider-Man in the MCU. I'm fine with that. And I think what they did was fine. And it was not what I expected. But the problem is, like, those movies are not as successful as they should have been because everyone else had the same complaint. Like, I see your version of Spider-Man, but it's still not my version of Spider-Man. It's not what we really want to see, but we're going to hold on because eventually it's going to happen. Now that we have that, now that he is Spider-Man, like, let's see that for 3 movies. I want to see that. I'm a little disappointed now that, there won't be able to be a Doc Ock or Green Goblin or Sandman, because we've already had those. That's not a spoiler. We've seen those in the trailer. But, you're not going to have an MCU version of that, or at least if you do. I don't want to see any more cosmic Spider-Man stuff. I don't want to see any multiverse Spider-Man stuff. I really don't even want to see any Spider-Man Avengers stuff. I just want to see 3 Spider-Man movies with Tom Holland with maybe some references to other characters, but I don't want to see him fight alongside the Avengers. I want to see friendly neighborhood Spider-Man and make that the new mantra instead of something home.
I think that's what we're going to get, at least in the next movie. The
Right.
2 after that, just because of how long frame they plan these things for, Marvel's planned out more with their characters than I have for the rest of my life, right? There would be MCU movies coming out when I'm having kids and retiring, and they know that now. So we don't know what we're getting, but I really hope that we get more of this specific iteration of Peter Parker. because
Yeah.
I cried several times during that movie. I don't know if I think I told you.
Yeah.
I wept like a child. I shouldn't. I was like, oh no, I'm gonna be fine. I'm not gonna. I know what's gonna happen. I don't need to. Then there were several times when just the tears came out.
Me
But
too.
like the best version, the best part of that movie was just that like glowing iridescent spider suit at the
Yes.
very end. And I was
Oh
like,
man.
that's it. That's him. That's not Tony Jr. That's like actually the Peter Parker I want.
Yeah.
So I don't know, that movie actually excited me so much
Me too.
that good for them.
Well, I was honestly like, okay, this is either going to be the end of Spider-Man or it's going to be the beginning. And I'm glad to hear that it's the beginning. And I hope that's the beginning of something even longer and not just, hey, we got you the Spider-Man. Nope, just kidding. We're going to kill him off in the first one. And here's Miles. Like, no, you finally got
No,
Spider-Man right. Um,
I do want to see what villains they give him because
yeah,
the multiverse closes off and opens up some possibilities. Like the different versions of Spider-Man villains that we got in um Into the Spider-Verse. It
right.
was interesting. They were people that we knew. They were
Yeah.
villains that we knew, but in a different lens. And I'm like, are you going to do that now that we've had Doc Ock? Are we going to get a different Doc Ock?
Mm-hmm.
By the way, fun story. My first memory as a child, I think, is like Doc Ock's origin story, not the entire movie, just like the glass falling on his wife.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's a core memory in here. But like, how are we going to get? What are those new characters going to look like?
Right.
I'm very excited. I think I don't know. I'm very excited. I'm also excited that apparently Toby is maybe re-signing for something else. I don't know what that would be.
That's what I was going to
Uh,
ask you about. Is so yeah, Tom Holland. Very excited about the potential future of that. And now there's two other Spider-Man that are and listen, I do want to address this very quickly because I do know a couple of friends of mine that still, by crappy luck, still have not seen No Way Home. I'm sorry. The internet's a thing that exists. Stay off of it if you don't want to hear about things that happen. Look, they've already spoiled the movie as far as like the fact that yes, Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield are in that movie. Sorry, didn't mean to spoil it for you, but it's been 2 weeks. Go watch the movie. But so there's two other Spider-Man with potential futures. I really want to see that. Like with Tobey Maguire potentially doing something. I don't want to see another trilogy of Tobey Maguire. As much as I love Tobey, give him one more movie. Finish it out. Bring Sam Raimi in. Have him direct his Spider-Man 4. Avi Arad, look, stay the hell away from that movie, okay? I don't like Avi Arad at all. Stay away from it. You ruined Spider-Man 3. You ruined Amazing Spider-Man. Stay away from it. But bring Sam Raimi in. Bring Tobey Maguire. Kirsten Dunst. Honey, I beg of you. I know you don't like them anymore, but please act like you do for this movie. I think she doesn't like someone. I think her and Toby had fallen. I don't know. But Kirsten Dunst, I beg you, honey, please be in this movie. End that story. Please don't kill him at the end, but like let there be a conclusive like this is the end of this chapter or whatever. Like bring some closure to that. Because the dance at the end of Spider-Man 3 is not closure. I just want to see that story end. There's rumors that it's going to be animated. That would be disappointing, but it would at least make sense. And we could talk about in another episode like what we want to see for that, like where we think that story would go. But I would love to see that end.
I almost don't want to see it. I'm
Oh,
worried
really?
because when you pick back up like 15 years later, like what does that look like? And also I think that No Way Home did it pulled off a really interesting magic trick where it finished off a trilogy that we've been seeing for the past 5 years,
Yeah.
and then also in little ways kind of served to tie up a bit, Andrew and Toby's movies as well, which kind of end very open, especially Andrew's. They end on cliffhangers, right?
Yeah.
But
Well,
and I think it sewed up their stories a little bit in a way that made me feel less like I'd been like conned out of the ending of these two characters, right?
yeah. Sorry, my every few minutes my webcam stopped. So okay, we're back.
Okay, I'm that I haven't like disappeared. I'm so surprised. My
Me
Wi-Fi
too.
sucks, as you know.
Well, it's working good. So I kind of agree. I love Toby. I want him back so bad. Like if anything, just do a simple little story about, because like there's hints at, like I said, they pull off a magic trick. Like there's enough context where like I don't want to see their wedding, but I want to see, like he said, their relationship's complicated. What? Okay, what does that mean? Like, are they just friends? Like, I want to see where they're at. I don't think Rosemary Harris is alive anymore. The woman who played Aunt May. Like, we can have it pick up there at her funeral or something like that. Like, what happened to that Spider-Man? Just something that ends with a triumphant swing. That's all I want. Like, don't end it on a stupid dance in a jazz club. Like, let me see with the Danny Elfman score. I'm getting teary eyed just thinking about it. Like, that's what I want to see. Okay, I'm kidding. I'm not getting teary eyed.
Are you sure?
Sorry for those of you guys listening on podcasts. There was some interesting ASMR for you.
Not ASMR. Someone likes it.
Someone, yes, unfortunately. And then
Someone,
Andrew.
I said, never forget. There's going to be someone into it.
Yeah. Well, and I definitely think that Andrew it has something happening. Potentially, I mean, that's been more or less confirmed. I don't know about Amazing Spider-Man 3. I don't know if I necessarily want to.
Mm-hmm. The weird thing about Andrew to me is that everyone said he was the worst. And then as soon as that movie came out, they're like, oh my God, I forgot how much I love these movies. Like, oh, he did such a great. Where were you? And they were coming out.
Yeah.
I stood and I braved liking those movies because I thought they were different than the Spider-Mans that I grew up with, and I appreciated that. And I still rewatch those faithfully, which is maybe my problem, but
yeah. And look, I've been outspoken about some of my critiques for the direction those movies went because I kind of felt like they were Dark Knight version of Spider-Man, but they do exactly what I said they should do, and like they stuck to that. Like that's what they wanted. Like, hey, we want a dark, gritty Spider-Man thing where Andrew is not just going to be Tobey Maguire, where he's like goofy and nerdy. Like, no, he's a skater. He's a smart ass. He's not necessarily he doesn't quip. He more or less roasts. And like that's fine. They had a very specific vision for Spider-Man. And they stuck to it, and I'm like, I applaud them for that. And yeah, that annoyed me too because like. The reason he's not Spider-Man anymore is because you didn't feel this way, 10 years ago when the movie came out.
exactly.
And I think, I would love to see somewhat of a conclusion to that. I don't know if I want to see, because he is young enough. He is young enough. I mean, dude looks like he's a teenager, even though he's almost 40 years old. But I don't know if I necessarily want to see a new trilogy of him. I wouldn't mind seeing him in the Sonyverse. So, like, seeing him against Venom and Morbius, I guess.
They put a Spider-Man like bit in Morbius that I think is it the Andrew or the Tobey Spider-Man? It looks specifically like one of them.
It is literally a screen grab from the PS4 Spider-Man game, but it's the Tobey skin.
There we go.
Because literally someone recreated that. Like literally it's from the PS4 game, but it's the Raimi skin. I don't want to see that. Although I guess you could.
I could bring it back for one movie or for some kind of arc.
Fine. So, okay, Tobey will fight Morbius. Even though I don't want to see that. But Tobey will fight Morbius. And then Andrew will fight Venom. Cool. Because then he could finally fight an alien, which is what he wanted to do.
That's true. Good for him. See, you just solved it. Send a very strongly worded letter to Sony. That I wouldn't be surprised if that was the deal that they came to. I mean, at this point, I think they're kind of committed to. We might as well have 10 Spider-Mans.
Yeah, and that's fine.
Around. There's enough of them to go around at this point.
There is, and you don't have to do a lot with them. Like, I don't want to see any more sequels after that. Like, give them one more movie. As much as I do enjoy Andrew and Tobey, like, give them one more movie. I want to see him. I want to see him at least one more time. course, it's kind of like that scene in Family Guy where, where weird throwback, but Herbert
I
is like, please God, just give me his hat, and he gets Chris's hat and he smells it. Now I want more. Like that's probably
see, that's how I feel about the last like few minutes where it's all three of them together. I was
yeah.
like, you shouldn't have given me this because now I want more of this. There is no reasonable way to give me more of this,
No.
and I don't care. Cancel the rest of the MCU. I think you should just scrap the Avengers, scrap
Spider
everything.
Verse.
I want the three Spider-Men together, swinging around,
Yeah.
doing nothing important.
We want
I just
Ninja
want Banter.
Ninja Turtles, but Spider Man.
Don't excite me.
Wouldn't that be great though, man? Oh God! But what if Morbius leads into, even though this is a terrible storyline from the '90s or early 2000s, what if Morbius is like the predecessor to Morlun, which is like the catalyst for the Spider Verse comic?
I mean,
If anyone can make it work, it would be Marvel.
I'll take
But
anything.
huh?
I said I'll take anything.
Even though I just got through saying I don't want to see any multiverse cosmic stuff, like fine. Okay, here you go. The last movie for Toby is him fighting Morbius, and he barely beats Morbius, and then Morlun comes up. Morlun should be played by Johnny Depp. Please just make it happen. And Toby is barely able to make it work, and somehow, don't even explain it, somehow Andrew and Tom come in and they all fight Morlun, and then that's it. That's the movie.
I mean, I'm just excited. I think I'm going back to villains now, though. We're getting Craven the Hunter.
That's true. That's true.
I
But in
it's
the
played
Sonyverse,
by someone. Is it?
I
We're
think.
getting Sony Craven. Well, considering it's played by Andrew Taylor, Aaron Taylor Johnson, the
Uh-huh.
same person who played Quicksilver. I doubt they're going to double dip casting wise, but who knows? They might.
So I did see. Side note: I saw one really cool thing they can do for another Avengers movie to bring the multiverse in, and it's they bring back the Fantastic Four. You know what I'm talking? So like the portal opens and Chris Evans walks through, and they think it's
Yeah,
Cap, and he says "Flame on." Like as much as I don't like those movies at all, I want to see that moment so bad. That would be so
I
cool.
like those movies. I actually like the Fantastic Four. Silver Surfer, okay, we can fight, but the Fan Four Stick, whatever the heck that was, with, I mean, it felt the worst thing is that you could see that it fell apart behind the scenes just based on the fact that like wigs would change from scene to scene
Yes.
based on reshoots, and it's like I never want to see anything from Fan Four Stick ever again. But
Yes.
Fantastic Four, I'll take Flame On. I love those movies. Maybe it's nostalgia speaking.
It,
It
it,
probably
it,
is.
it is nostalgia. Here's the problem with it. Like those movies were about, well, I think the first Fantastic Four came out the right time. If it were a couple years earlier, it'd have been better. They're such early 2000 superhero movies. Like they work
Mhm.
in the Raimi era, but they don't.
They feel very much like Spider-Man movies of that. Yeah.
But they don't work in the MCU. So
No,
like,
not,
I would be fine if now that they can do this, I would be fine with seeing an MCU Fantastic Four. That would be cool. But I just want that one moment. I don't care about seeing the rest of the Fantastic Four. I just want that one moment. I do have some nostalgia for those movies, but Fan Four Stick, I've never seen it. I saw the trailer. I'm like, that is garbage. I'm not gonna watch this movie. And I've
I
tried.
try.
I've tried. I watched the CinemaSins overview of it, and just like, which is a horrible way to watch movies, but I watched theirs
I
because I'm, huh?
I do that too.
Yeah, but I watched that and I was like, this is horrible. And everyone that I've talked to, I got a buddy of mine who he likes every movie, like any movie, he will find the positive and just talk about how amazing it is. Like he likes Spawn, like, and I was
You
like,
know, I want that.
huh?
I want that positivity for myself, I think.
Yeah, and he even said, "Dude, don't watch that movie. It's terrible." So, that's I kept you longer than I wanted to, and I'm very sorry. But this is what
We're talking
happens.
about so it's good.
What's that?
I like talking about movies that I Like, so
Well, and
hasn't felt that long.
yeah, I looked down at the time. I'm like, oh gosh, I told her I'd only keep her for an hour. But thank you
Mm.
for coming on. I think, let's see, did anyone send you any questions? I don't think anyone did. Um,
I, I don't think so.
you don't think
Watch,
so?
I haven't
Well,
checked it in a while. I can check.
so the only question that I got on mine, and by the way, every time I announce the guest for the next episode, I give you guys the option to send in questions, and a couple people sent in questions, but the only ones that weren't troll questions, thank you, Aaron, um, was from, and I am so sorry that I don't have your name because apparently I lost that story. Okay, so we can just briefly, and this will be all you because I don't know anything about this, but someone asked, with you being the expert on EVA foam, how do you cover up seams with EVA foam?
Okay, so I'm gonna cut on my light so you can actually see better. You have a few options with covering up your seams. So sometimes I put these down here. Sometimes you don't really need to in the way that you glue things on, and maybe your seams end up being smooth anyway. But a lot of times, the best thing you can do for your seam is if it's really uneven, so a really high point and a really low point. If you take your sanding stone or your Dremel and you sand down a bit of that high part, and then you use some basically like the quick dry quick seal caulk to fill in the low part to
Mm-hmm.
get to a middle, your seam will completely go away. Or, which I think this is a great idea, you can actually, instead of painting, you can put fabric over foam. If you glue it down very carefully, if you have a relatively like synthetic, not super absorbent fabric, you can glue that over and that can cover your seam. You can also put very thin 2 millimeter foam.
Mm-hmm.
How you would like skin a muscle suit, you know?
Yeah.
You can do that with 2 millimeter foam. It You have to be careful with it
Yeah.
because once again it's flat and you're putting it on something that's 3D and you can get ripples, but you can make things look like they're one piece if you just very carefully and slowly like glue down and press in and heat like almost burn your foam into all of your crevices. They all take time, but they're definitely worth it. The quick seal is probably the easiest one.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't want to paint, then putting the right color fabric over your piece is one. It doesn't Fabric doesn't have brush strokes, so that helps.
Yeah.
Um, that's good. But I like the 2 millimeter foam over top option.
Yeah.
It's pretty quick and it's like Vorbla but cheaper.
That's true. And it was Dennis Builds. I was able to find it. Dennis.builds. So thank you for sending in your question. He did say especially for cows. I guess you'll find out whenever you make your cow for your Batman.
Oh, yeah. I think for that it's going to be the fabric option because the
Mm.
cowl itself on the costume, it's of course made in like plastic, but it it feels like if I could make it 3D, but I guess is what I'm doing, it would be somewhat fabricy or synthetic fabric. So I would do the fabric option for that if that's what you're doing and you're making it in foam and then you're putting something on it. I do the fabric option.
You could almost use that headliner foam too, which will give it some structure, but it's not like a fabric cow. That'd be a good one to use.
You could do that as well. Yeah, I need to actually get some headliner foam.
Yeah.
Fun fact. We were talking about it. Now it's actually in my head for this costume.
Yeah, I had a neat idea for a Spider-Man mask actually using headliner foam because a lot of guys will use like a 3D printed or plastic face shell,
Mhm.
and experimenting with how you would do that with headliner foam to give it some structure, but it still be a lot more breathable, and it's actually still malleable. Like so, it's not like this hard like Power Ranger helmet. So that was the only question other than Aaron asking when can we make sweet love. I don't know who that was directed towards. So
I'm assuming you. He likes you.
he does. Aaron, I love Aaron too, but I think I need to quit saying that live on the air because he's taking it the wrong way. I don't want to lead him on. So anyway, well, is there anything else that you wanted to touch on while I had you here? I definitely need to have you back in a few weeks.
I know. So we can. I was gonna wait. I have to ask you this. Have you seen Eternals yet? Then okay. when you watch Eternals, I will come back because I have things about Eternals.
Okay.
But that connect more to like bringing back certain characters that I really enjoy. But it's about. Oh no, I'll come back. I'll come back and I'll
So
scream.
that's the contingency. I have to or not the contingency. That's the condition. I have to watch that. Then you'll come back.
Yes.
Okay. Well, at some point over the next 3 weeks, because I've actually got guests lined up for the next two, which is cool. Very excited about next week's guest, which we will announce very quickly. But yeah, I will definitely watch it. It's on my list. It's on my list of things to watch. Right after Fant Four Stick. No, I'll watch Eternals first.
So,
oh my gosh! For those of you that aren't listening to the podcast, the face she just made when I said that.
It was actually a true shiver too. I was truly upset.
Oh man, that was adorable. Okay, so what was I saying? So so do you have anything else that you wanted to address while we were here?
I don't think so.
You don't
I've
think
said
so?
no. I think I've given all of my hottest takes. Do I have any more hot takes? I don't know.
I mean, we talked about pretty much everything that we were planning on talking about beforehand and more. So which was
I didn't
interesting.
say yeah, too controversial
Yeah.
though. I gotta find a controversial opinion to have next time. I'll dig it up. I'll find it.
Okay. I was about to say you like Eternals, which is
I
controversial, I
know.
think.
Okay, see, when I come back next time, I'll bring my PowerPoint for why Eternals is a great movie because it is a PowerPoint.
If you do have a PowerPoint, seriously send it to me and I can like have that playing while we're talking. Absolutely.
I will. I'll make a PowerPoint. I'm very passionate about that movie.
Yeah. Well, make your PowerPoint and I'll have you on in a couple of weeks. Well, Sydney, thank you so much for coming on here. I love you to pieces. You are one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. And it's always fun to have you on here. Yeah, it's I'm surprised this episode is as short as it is, honestly, because you and I could talk for hours and hours, especially when we get on the topic of like Spider-Man and MCU and stuff like that, just all these cool things. But thank you so much for coming on, and everyone, links will be in the description below for for Sydney's socials. Getting all tongue tied now. But yeah, absolutely amazing cosplayer, really, really sweet person, and has really, really great content. She's always got her work in progress Wednesdays that are sometimes, I think, unintentionally hilarious. And so...
Accidentally, when I put something dumb in my head, I think that really sells it. But thank you for having me. I'm surprised we finished at this point too. I was like, I thought we were just going to go into like 9 a.m.
Right,
just screaming things.
Well, I mean, technically, the Skype call doesn't have to be over, but I will have to drive this bus on home. And unfortunately, I think how I've got it set up on OBS, whenever I go to the next segment, which is going to be Cosplayer of the Week and announcing next week's guest, I think it's going to cut off your feed. So I think this is where you'll have to say goodbye to everyone else, but I can still see you in the corner of my screen, so you can still troll me if you want.
I can bully you.
You can bully me, okay. All right. Well, everyone say bye, Sydney. We all love you, and we want to see you every week, but we'll at least settle for every couple of weeks. How about that?
Sounds good.
All right. We'll talk to you later. And so now let's move on to the cosplayer of the week, which for this week is... Oh, and I lost my camera feed. Hold on. I forgot to switch this over. This is a live show, everyone. Don't forget. Sydney, quit laughing at me. You are most definitely laughing at me. All right, let's go back to me. Boom, boom. There we are. Okay. Cosplayer of the week, which for this week is the amazing Cyborg Benji. This dude is an absolutely amazing Batman cosplayer. He's got a few other ones that he is working on, like a Witcher cosplay, which is really cool. But check out these really cool shots of his bat suit there. And that's his Witcher cosplay. I'm assuming that's Witcher. I don't know. I don't watch that show. Just kidding. I do watch it every once in a while. I just like Henry Cavill. So there's another cool shot of his bat suit. Very unique. It seems to be like a Dawn of Justice base suit. seems to be puff painted, which, man, if he puff painted that whole suit, props to him. That's a lot of lines. With a kind of unique like Justice League War emblem and a Justice League War cowl with a Christian Bale belt. Cool, unique take. I really enjoy it. That's an excellent shot of him. Like, I don't know who his photographer is, but whoever it is, man, excellent job on this. And then you get him peeking around the corner, which is unintentionally hilarious. So absolutely, go give Cyborg Benji a follow. He will be in the description below, so you can check him out. And yeah, man, if you were watching this, congratulations on being this week's Cosplayer of the Week. And now, guys, I am a little too excited about this. I am very excited to announce next week's guest, who, I'll be honest with you, I was shocked that he actually agreed to do this, just because... when I first decided to revamp BatChat, I asked people, who are some people you would like to see? And there were some people that, I obviously thought, people were going to suggest. But I thought for fun, I was like, you know what? A couple of these guys, we follow each other. So I'm just going to randomly tag them in a story and just say, hey, do you want to be on BatChat? And this one agreed. And much to my amazement and surprise. So I'm very pleased to announce next week's guest, the one, the only... Saddle Up. Saddle Up will be next week's guest. I am just absolutely stoked out of my gourd about. I don't even know what that means. But very, very excited about that. Having Saddle Up on here. Saddle Up is obviously an amazing Batman cosplayer. Probably one of the biggest Batman cosplayers there are. And it's really, really cool to have him on here and be able to talk his ear off about all things Batman and Batman cosplay and get some of his hot takes on certain things. I'll be putting up a poll on Instagram for questions that you guys want to ask, so you can send them in. And just for fun, if you want, I will include shout-outs in there as well, in case you guys want to have credit for asking your silly questions. But no, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of BatChat. Looking forward to having Saddle Up here next week. And thank you to Sydney for being on here. If you are still listening, I see you over in the corner of my screen, giving me a hard time and doing the little Rascals thing, which is fun. But is that Little Rascals? I think that's Little Rascals. But thank you guys so much for watching and listening to this episode of BatChat. Again, BatChat can be found on all or at least all the popular podcast hosting sites like Apple Podcast and Spotify. Links will be in the description below for that. You can also catch me here on YouTube as well. Give me a follow on Instagram at D_H_cosplay, or you can just follow the link. That way it's not as complicated, as well as Sydney's cosplay page, as well as this week's Cosplayer of the Week. You can follow all of them. I encourage you to do so, and be sure to come in every week, Saturday, 2 p.m. Central Time. That is the correct time. That's what C means, not Central. It means correct. And we go live every every 2 p.m. every Saturday, 2 p.m. We go live here on YouTube, and then you can listen to it after the fact on all those different places, like I said, and also watch it back live. Thank you guys so much for watching, and be sure to join me next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. You guys have a great week.